Well, I'm Drew Hendry and I'm delighted to be hosting another Good Business podcast for DBNN here at Gordon's Timber in Nairn. And my guests today are Scott and Ron. Ron, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Ronald Gordon. I am the Joint Managing Director of Gordon Timber. I've been working in the business since 1988 and I'm responsible for the operational side of things as it relates to the production, the health and safety and the engineering.
Scott.
Morning Drew, good to see you back. I'm Scott Gordon, I'm the Joint Managing Director here at Gordon Timber. I'm responsible for CapEx, sales and harvesting, and I've been working in the business since 1987.
Well, it's really nice to be here because this is a very special business, particularly in the terms of the community and how long it's been here. Tell us a bit about the history of this business. It's been in family ownership for many generations, yeah?
Yeah, the business was founded in 1862 by Hugh McIntosh, so it wasn't our own family that started it, but our great-grandfather John Gordon and his brother James joined the firm about 1875. Their first job, I believe, was sweeping snow off the deck of the schooners, so started at the bottom, so to speak, and John took the business forward in the 1890s as Hugh McIntosh suffered ill health, and John Gordon eventually bought over the business in 1900, and it's been in the family business ever since.
And as a continuing family business, I mean, that's many years in the business, and it must be one of the oldest companies in Scotland in terms of being a family-run business.
We believe that we're in the top 15 of longest established family businesses in Scotland, so that's an accolade that we're very proud of and want to continue for many, many years to come. So
to be in business as a family for that long, I mean, there must be a real kind of joy and excitement about the business, because otherwise people would have gone off during the generations and followed different stars and taken different paths. It must be a real kind of, not only a sense of family ownership, but a real sense of family with the business.
Yeah, absolutely. We enjoy the fact that we have a number of families in the business that have worked with us for decades, fathers and sons, brothers and cousins and so on. So there's a real sort of sense of family about it, and it's something that we're very, very proud of.
Well, at the Good Business podcast, we believe that family is at the heart of good business. So we want to hear more about both of you. Tell us, what in your career has influenced you most?
I think for myself, I suppose, I've been fortunate enough to work alongside a number of people who've got tremendous experience in the industry, and that's happened from a very early age. I suppose, being honest, I think I speak for both Scott and I when I say our father has had a huge influence on our career, and I think we're very, very keen to follow him into the business, and following on that, we've had many other people along the way, managers both within our own company and out with our company, but still in the industry, who I think have inspired us and let us see that it can be very inspirational, I suppose, following in the footsteps of people that have really taken our industry forward tremendously.
You talk about inspiration. What is it that motivates you most in terms of the business and taking it forward?
I think we like manufacturing something. They say that manufacturing in the UK is dead. Well, we're up here in a smallish town in Nairn in the north of Scotland, and we're very proud of the fact that we manufacture and we make something. We actually make something, and it's grown in the Highlands, processed here, and it's competing with products from all over the world. So that gives us a great sense of achievement, and I'd like to think the vast majority of our workforce share in that pride as well.
Well, obviously, to be successful, you have to develop skills that are not necessarily always in the house. Tell us a wee bit about your own journeys and how you came to be where you are now.
My background is a financial one. I studied accountancy down at Napier when it was a college way back in the early 80s. I'm a certified accountant, that's my profession, but although I don't practice that on a daily basis, I find it a tremendous foundation, if you like, in helping me understand and be the joint managing director in the business. I have been fortunate enough to spend some time working in Germany in the Black Forest in a sawmill over there, and I suppose since probably 1988 have learned a lot through the various departments within the business. So now I find myself in the position where I'm in my mid to late 50s and able to use a lot of the experience I've gained, pass on to other people.
Yeah, I did mechanical engineering down at Imperial College and London University. Enjoyed my time down there, but I felt I wanted to come back and get involved in the business with Ronald and with our father, and I suppose have a crack at that and try and take that forward. As you say, you talked about the history. We were keen to, very privileged to have been able to get involved in the business, but we wanted to make it better and push it forward, and we've tried to do that over the last 30 years.
Well, we've talked about the history and the fact that the business has been in your family for generations. How much of a role does that long family history play in today's business operations for you?
No, I think people enjoy the longevity of the business, and they value the kind of the values that we have in terms of family and service and quality and that sort of thing. So I think it's a very good message, just the age of the business and how much emphasis we put on quality and service. It's worth a lot. Yeah.
But of course you don't stay in business as long as your family has. You don't have this level of success unless you innovate, unless you do new things with the business. What is the role of innovation in the business here? Is there a vision that drives that through? And if so, how do you get your employees to buy into it?
I think innovation's got to be at the heart, of what you do, in the sense that nothing stands still. And although the business was founded over 160 years ago, it was really our father who decided he would specialise on the sawmilling side of things in the 1960s, having come from a background where we were involved with grain and coal. And since then, I think we've tried to take things forward. At the moment, I suppose we're recognising that there's more and more importance, rightly so, attached to the environmental credentials involved with green industry, you might call. So I think that's very much got to be at the heart of what we're doing. And I think being open to new technology, Scott might want to speak a bit about that in terms of where we're at with the new technology now.
Yeah, but we've had a philosophy of reinvesting in the business. So we think since we built our new mill in 1998, we've spent in the region of £20 million in that period. Our current strategy is to spend £1 million in the business every year. So we've got to get the best kit, and we believe we've got the best kit that money can buy, sort of idea. And I think continuing to innovate. At the moment we have a robotics project on the go, which is extremely exciting. It's something of an R&D project as well, but we're incredibly excited about that. It's been very, very challenging. It's coming to fruition now. We're just working our way through the sort of testing and commissioning, but incredibly excited about that and seeing if we can apply that modern technology to a traditional industry.
And how important is it, Ron, for your employees to be invested in that vision?
I think it's absolutely essential, Drew. We very much see them as being at the heart of what we do, and I think when we're talking about innovation and adaptability, I think we all know that the world is a more complicated place than ever before, and I think we've got to try and be very much in tune with what a good employer needs to be doing to look after their people and to, I suppose, take them with them, as it were, make them feel engaged. I think we work very hard at that to make them feel as part of a team. And
you look after them as well, don't you? Because they're just the small things. When you come into this business, you can see the fresh fruit laid out. This is a nice way to respect and treat people. Do you feel that you get a return in your business for doing that kind of thing, going that little extra?
I think so, yeah. I think the vast majority of people do appreciate that, and we've got a long sort of history of doing that. I think you can't fake that. I think people get that. We have a discretionary bonus system where everybody throughout the business gets that amount at the end of the year. If we have a good year, we share that with every last one of the employees. And I think these kind of messages are very, very important, and I think people do respond to that. And I think they want to come and work here. Yeah.
And do you feel that helps your productivity? Do you think people are more motivated and give you more back?
I think so, for sure. I think it's important as well as the tangible recognition. I think it's taking the time to literally say good morning to people and thank them for their efforts. I think that goes a long way, because we do genuinely appreciate what people do for us. You know, it's very, very important to us. We can't overstate the value of that, and I think acknowledging it in some of the simple ways, you know, are often the most effective ways.
And these simple, small things do make a big difference. I'm interested to let our listeners know something a bit unusual, or that they might not have picked up from any of the marketing material. Tell us something interesting that people might not necessarily know about your business.
I think it's a small story. Back in the 80s, I believe the ceiling of the House of Lords was in need of repair. I think Mr. Lord Shirnwell, Manny Shirnwell, I think it nearly came a cropper with one of the timbers there, but our father got together with Lord Codder of Codder Estate, and we processed timber that came from the estate for the refurbishment of the ceiling of the House of Lords. So that's, not everybody can say that.
It's a piece of history there as well. Not only have you got your own history, but a piece of history in Parliament as well. Let's bring it right up to the future and how you're taking the business forward. What are the biggest challenges that you face in this industry, in this business at the moment?
I think in the here and now, the biggest challenge we have is succession planning. You know, we're very fortunate. We've talked a lot already about the value and the appreciation we have for the people that work in the business. I think we've been very fortunate that they've shown great loyalty, and we've got people that have been here 20, 30, 40 years. I think our challenge is to identify the next generation at all levels of the business that want to come into it, and I think if we can literally get them over the doorstep and let them see what we're doing here, I think they're genuinely impressed and captivated, and I think that's the challenge for us, is to engage with them and let them see that sawmilling has moved on. It's a very high-tech industry now. It's at the forefront of the Scottish economy. We're absolutely delighted that to have been recognised, you know, as an industry as contributing £1 billion to the Scottish economy. It underpins 20,000 jobs, often in the rural locations, and I think if we can try and keep getting that message across, hopefully more people will want to come and work, not only in our sawmilling business, but other sawmilling businesses throughout the land of Scotland. I think looking beyond that, the other challenge that we have is continuity of raw material supply. And again, I think we've been very appreciative of the fact that replanting has really been kick-started over the last 5 years. We've had great support from Fergus Ewing, and I think that's carrying on now, Mary McCallan. So we're absolutely delighted that that's setting the industry fair, but we just need to have more trees in the right place at the right time.
And we'll come back to that supply issue in a wee minute, but Scott, you know, talking about attracting people into the business. I mean, when you cross the threshold here, you see the combination of all the kind of, both not only the kind of physical works, the machinery that's moving things around, but also the technology that's employed in processing the wood that you are dealing with here. It's a really exciting environment. It is a challenge getting people to understand how rewarding and how interesting a career working in this business is.
Absolutely, as Rod says, I think if we can get them over the threshold, so to speak, that, you know, there's a really attractive business here. So I think before we probably quite liked the idea that we're sort of tucked away up Balblair Road, if you like, and what we've tried to do with our new office, which we're extremely proud of, it's a great space to work in, beautifully light and lots of timber in use, and get a great vision of the yard. I think with something like that, we wanted to make more of a statement about the kind of company we were and what it would be like to come in and join us and work with us, you know. So that was a big thing for us 5 years ago. But I think, as you say, the technology we employ, I think people are kind of quite taken aback when they see the sort of 3D scanning. We're now moving to robotics, but just the kind of technology that is involved in taking a log and processing it into it's an engineered component. You know, it's not sort of plus or minus half an inch. It's plus or minus a millimetre. It's an engineered component now, and it's very demanding. We've got to have the best kit, employed by the best people.
And of course, you're renowned for treating employees well, not only in the way you treat them, but it's a rewarding industry in terms of the earnings potential for people coming into the business, isn't it?
Very much so. I think we want people to feel, as say, they can have a career path, they can have a future here. You know, we've been fortunate enough to be around for 160 years. We're not going anywhere. We plan to be here for many, many years to come, and we want people to come and work with us and enjoy levels of job satisfaction that we've enjoyed. and be rewarded accordingly, Drew.
Yeah, you talked, just to come back to the other point you made there about the challenges, you talked about supply and so forth. If you were able to get one message out there to say what needs to happen in order to help you with that, what would that message be?
I think for me, I think that there's a greater appreciation of timber and processing, but we very much feel that timber is the building product of the future. It's got great green credentials. It's, as Rod says, we're generating employment. It's kind of what's not to like. So I think planting more trees and accepting that some of these trees will not be beautiful to look at, but they perform a function, and they generate the kind of resources that allow people to go and enjoy the countryside. So it's a win-win situation. I think planting more trees for the future is definitely the main message that we would have.
I think it's also seen in the context of how the industry has developed over the last 30-40 years. When Scott and I first got involved in the late 80s, we were supplying as an industry about 15% of the softwood requirements in the UK. We've managed to successfully grow that market share up to 40%. So we're helping our balance of payments. The industry has managed to move from traditional industries such as coal and the British Railways onto fencing, agricultural and domestic, construction timber. It's really exciting the way we've managed to grow our market share and help the general economy throughout the country.
Well, you talked about growing your market share there. And obviously marketing is important to every business. How important is marketing to this business specifically, if I can get that word out?
Yeah.
And how do you decide how you're going to market a business like this?
I think a lot of it is in the product itself. So we're very much a repeat business. We want people to keep coming back. So our customer base is very sort of steady. So by really sort of servicing them, I can't get my words out now, servicing them properly, giving them what they want, when they want it at a fair price, that's worth a lot. And I think that word of mouth gets out there, and so a lot of that is our marketing, if you like, is just letting the product speak for itself.
The quality and the
reliability.
I think that service, what we do is we pay particular emphasis on that. We've got very good coordination between our respective processing departments, harvesting where we source the raw material, production where we convert it, and the sales and marketing where we engage with the customer and dispatch it. And I think we work very hard at that, and that's reflected in the level of repeat business that we've got.
So in a business like this, how do you continue to learn to stay on top of things and in order to keep delivering that quality and reliability for your customers?
I think a lot of it is just that desire to learn and keep getting better. I think that's been one of the drivers for us, through the late 80s when we arrived. We looked at a lot of sawmilling businesses around and looked at the big guys, if you like, and visited their mills and saw what they were doing, and over a period of time invested in that. Some of it was second-hand machinery. Then we moved on to it all being brand new and moving on to the best of kit. So there's been a real driver and desire to just be the best that we can be and process locally grown timber as efficiently as we possibly can. We get a great deal of pride out of doing that.
Now, one impact that's been affecting all businesses over the past few years has obviously been the pandemic. I don't think you can talk about business without talking about that impact. And it's forced many changes in the workplace, as we've seen. Are there any changes that you've made to working practices that you intend to keep in place going into the future?
I think one thing that we have done is that obviously we really had to be very stringent with regards to our hygiene protocols, and I think we've worked very hard at trying to improve the welfare facilities, and I think that's been something that it's just morally, I think that's just the right thing to do. We felt there's a real benefit in continue to look after our people better and better. So although that drive to increase the amount of welfare facilities and increase the hygiene, was driven initially by COVID, I think it's something that's definitely here to stay. It's just the right thing to do. I think the other thing that we've been aware of and obviously embraced is the hybrid working. The reality is that having a sawmilling business, unfortunately, a lot of the people have to remain here.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's certain positions that lend themselves towards, a combination of being in the office at times and working remotely as well. And I think that's been a real game changer, for us as well. And I think linked very much to that, Drew, is the question about how we conduct our meetings. You know, we're in this meeting room as part of our purpose-built office, which stands us in very good stead on many occasions, but equally now, if we need to, we can meet remotely, which is a fantastic option to have.
And has that remote working also filtered through to your customers? Do you engage more with your customers or online now? Is that a feature? Or?
We do a little bit more of that. I think there's probably more mileage in that yet for us to go. I think we've seen the benefits of this technology. You know, we are remote from a lot of our customers. We do a lot in the Highlands, a lot in Scotland, but we still do a lot in England, and it is difficult to get down to see people. So I think we've got to try and build on that and use that technology to engage a little bit more closely with our customers. I think the other thing to say as well is that we've found great benefit in the flexibility of remote working. So I think when we get a motivated and driven, especially management team, if you like, they want to get the job done. So giving them a bit more flexibility as to when they start and when they finish and being at home for some of the time, I think that's improved the morale and it's improved the output, you know, so I think that's been a great thing for all of us.
Adaptability is obviously really key to your business. It must have been for you to have been in business for so long as a family business. But other than the pandemic, can you share a time when you've had to embrace new ways of working?
I think one of the things that probably springs to mind is back in 2008 when we went through, you know, like many businesses, you know, a very severe downturn, I suppose, you know, as a result of the financial crash, and that was a very difficult time for the business, along with many others, you know, that we had to go through a consultation process with a significant number of employees. We just weren't in a position to keep them all on, you know, and I think we had to be very inclusive, very adaptable, very transparent throughout that whole process, and I think it taught us many valuable lessons, you know, in terms of sometimes there is bad news, but I think you just have to be as transparent and upfront with people as you can, and I think we learned a lot from that and got very good support from people out with the business. We use a very good firm of lawyers called Lenny & Chalmers who helped us greatly with that, but that's probably a time that springs to my mind in terms of which was particularly challenging and required a great adaptability because the demand pretty well fell off a cliff almost overnight, it felt.
I think these instances force you to tighten your belt, have a good look at the business. So whether it's during the pandemic or whether it was through that financial crash, you have a really hard look at your business and try and sort of take the emotion out of it. So there may be customers that you did very well out of over a period of time, and that's maybe not such a good order now. You've just got to be quite brutal about it and sort of, you know, have a hard look at the facts, and if it's not adding up, you've got to change things and adapt, as you say.
But through all of that time, you've continued to invest in your people, as we were talking about earlier, and your team is obviously really important. You get that vibe when you enter the building here. Can you tell us a wee bit more about what you do to promote skills development, and do you have an example of success that you could share with us?
Yeah, I think an example of success, we've got a couple of examples. Craig Simpson, who is our production manager, he joined the firm in the early 90s, you know, as an apprentice engineer, doing a bit of engineering, a bit of labouring. He has progressed through the company over a period of time, and he's now the production manager. He now sits on the senior management team, and I think that's a great example of somebody through hard work, dedication and training coming through to really playing a lead role in the business. I think the other example I would use is Lynn Bowie, who's our sales executive. Lynn joined us as a weighbridge operator probably about 15 years ago. You know, and again, through a lot of hard work and dedication, she's worked her way through into the sales department, and now she's our first point of contact, and the customers love her, you know, and I think it's a great story of what people can become, the opportunities that we've got here.
Well, bringing that extra value to your customers through working with your teams, obviously, it's come through time and time again in our conversation this morning. Is that something that you put at the forefront of your decision making when you look at how you're going to engage, or is it something that's just kind of embedded in?
I'd like to think it's part of our DNA, Drew. I mean, just to go back to what Scott was saying, you know, I think when we first got really involved with people initiatives, if you like, we were very keen to support the Investors in People standard. You know, we were very proud of the fact we were the first sawmill in the United Kingdom to get that standard way back in 1995. And I think one of the drivers was that, I mean, we looked around and saw that there was probably a lack of recognised qualifications for the industry. You know, it was still a very much as one of our managers called it, a Cinderella industry, you know, and well, thankfully it's now come of age, but I think because of that, we felt there was a need to try and learn and develop our own people, grow our own, if you like, no pun intended. And Scott's given a couple of very good examples of Craig Simpson and Lynn Bowie. You know, we've also got George McPhail, who's our yard manager, and Frank Meehy, who's our engineering manager. You know, they've really progressed through the business and developed, and we take great pride and satisfaction in seeing them occupying these positions of real responsibility. And you know, long may that continue.
That's why customers will keep coming back to you. It's because you've got that quality embedded and you've got the people working for them. I think one important aspect that I think people will be interested in is how do you get to know and understand your customers so that you can connect that good business practice with them?
I think it's speaking to them, it's listening, you know, and communicating with them. So as we touched on earlier on, you know, going to see them, see what it is they use, what it is they need, but very much listening to them and going the extra mile when they're in a bit of difficulty. You know, they've forgotten to order a pack, or they're short of this, there's a big demand for that, and you know, really going the extra mile for them. And you know, we think that's just good business practice. You know, it works for our customers, it works for us, and you know, and it works both ways. You know, if we're going through a quieter period, you know, the kind of loyalty that our customers show in terms of giving us an extra chance at getting some more business is very much appreciated by us. So it works both ways.
I would just add to that, you know, I think we're very conscious that all of us are fortunate enough to live in a lovely part of the world. You know, the quality of life, we think is all second to none, but I suppose the reality is we're not on the beaten track. So I mean, we really have to go out to the customers in the vast majority of occasions because they're not going to tend to pass our door. So there's that added incentive to jump in the car or fly down, whatever it needs, you know, because we've got a good customer base both in Scotland and England, you know, in terms of looking after people and really engaging with them and finding out what's going on.
We spoke about this being almost the ultimate environmentally friendly product because you're planting the customers are making for you is giving you the edge in that conscious consumerism debate.
I think people like the fact that it's, you know, the product we've got here is renewable, you know, so effectively we keep growing more as I talked about earlier on. We got involved in the FSC scheme, Forestry Stewardship Council scheme, over 20 years ago, so that was a standard that we had to demonstrate to our customers that the materials that we were buying in here were coming from properly managed sources. You know, as I say, that's over 20 years ago, and it was very reassuring for our customers to have that. An interesting little story: we export a lot of our chips, so it's a byproduct, but about 50% of what comes in as a round log goes out as byproduct. These chips, we've had a market over in Norway for well over 20 years now. It's a great alternative and it's a good margin, but the main driver for them, and it feels like coals to Newcastle, but the main driver for them was that we had FSC, we could put that label on our chips, and that was something that was important to them. So that was a sort of combination of a business decision that worked well for us, but through demonstrating that the environment was being looked after.
Just to add to that, you know, Scott used the phrase rightly about byproducts or co-products, as we would call them. You know, it's a source of great pride to us, the fact that nothing is wasted. Mm-hmm. When Scott and I were young boys, as it were, we can remember our.
What do you mean were?
Our father showing us the bark that came off the initial part of the process and having to be dumped and burned, you know, and now here we are, sort of 40, 50 years on. It's got great use for the horticultural industry, and Scott's given an example of the peeled chips. You know, nothing is wasted, and I think that's a great message to be able to get out to people.
How do you keep pushing that envelope in terms of, because if you're almost at 100% of, or you know, you might be there, I don't know, but if you're 100% of using every particular product, how do you continue to push that envelope? Are there business practices you can look to reduce energy on? Are there different ways of doing things that you can do that? What plan changes do you have for making amendments to your business and plan?
I think, you know, again, it's all about good stewardship. So being stewardship, the definition being, you know, all that you do with all that you have sort of idea. You know, we got involved with Lean Manufacturing and the Scottish Manufacturing Advisory Service, SMAS, and we put about 25 of our people through that course. Rod and I did it, and it was great. Coming out of that was a project that we had to do interdepartmental. So I did a project on the yield and what we could get out of the log and making the most of the log, and it was great to see some of the operators really getting involved in that and seeing how we could squeeze every last percent out of that, because 1% on that return, if you like, getting sawn wood out of our highly valued logs coming in is worth tens of thousands of pounds to us a year. So it was a great example of using that learning of the lean manufacturing, collaborating with people throughout the business to give us something that squeezed every last percentage out of the logs.
So, what's next for the business? I mean, you talked about the fact you're a manufacturer. You obviously produce end product that goes out there. What is the product or the end product that has most growth potential for you? Where are you putting your hopes into the future on that?
I think the domestic use of timber, so landscaping, fencing in people's gardens, we've sort of seen an enormous
demand. It's a massive market now, isn't it?
Oh, huge! Yeah, all the programs on TV. I think one of the things about the pandemic with people being at home was that they had time in their hands and they were investing in their own houses, gardens, and what have you. So I think that will continue. I think people like the look of wood. They like the look of wood in their homes, in their gardens. So we sort of see that as being continuing to be a great growth potential.
It's never been more appreciated.
Exactly.
No, exactly. Yeah.
And I touched early on, Drew, about the fact that we've grown the market share as an industry up to 40%. And I think what's really important, I suppose, is holding it at that. And it comes back to my point about if we can keep these replanting targets being met, then we've got a real chance of maintaining 40% of the market in this country, which I think can only be good. So that's.
So we're coming towards the end of our chat just now. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners about your business, Gordon's?
I think one of the things that I would like to try and get across is that there is a place for commercial forestry. I think it sits very well with the recreation, the environment. Forestry's got such a fantastic story to tell, and the timber receipts, or the payments, if you like, that are made for the commercial crop, just help to drive all these wonderful things that the forest can provide, whether it's mountain biking, walking. It's all there, and I think that's the wonderful thing about forestry. And if we can just keep getting that message across that commercial forestry does have a place. Scott touched upon the fact that we're very proud of growing something in the Highlands, and it complements so many of the wonderful benefits that forests and forestry provide.
So finally, this podcast is about getting the heart and soul of good business. What is at the heart of your business?
People, for me, I'd say it's all about the people. I would say it's the people that work here, it's the people that buy from us, it's the people that supply to us. I know we're maybe sounding like a scratch record, but it is all about the people at the end of the day. And I think recognising that and valuing that, and we've talked a lot about employees, but we like to think that we look after our customers and we genuinely look after our suppliers as well. So that would be for me.
I think, getting back to the point I made earlier on about making something, about manufacturing something, the pride that we take as shareholders and owners in the business, and the guys that are out there producing it day in, day out for us. When you go down to a customer's yard and you see Gordon Timber in there, down in the Midlands or whatever, the pride that you get in seeing that, and the teamwork that's gone into producing that and selling that into a highly competitive market makes it worth coming in here every day.
So to find out more about that, to find out more about you, how can our listeners connect with you, either online or in person?
Well, I mean, we're delighted if people want to come and see what we do. I mean, we're very committed with working with the local secondary school at Nairn Academy, and we really have an open invitation to the pupils over there if anyone want to come over and see what we do, with the idea of, we'll probably have a vested interest in saying that. We'd like to encourage some of them to make a career, but that really goes for any prospective employees. If they want to come and have a look and see what we do, we'd be delighted to show you around and learn a bit more about the company and the industry, and maybe think about making a career in it.
Well, Ron and Scott, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the Good Business Podcast.
Thanks very much, Drew. Good to see you.
Thank you.